Good afternoon, boys and girls. Oh, sorry about that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When Gay said teacher, yes, I retired from 30 years of teaching, and the adage that once a mom, always a mom, well, once a teacher, always a teacher, because Larry will often said, would you stop talking to me like I'm one of your students? He doesn't get it, he doesn't listen. Right. Anyways, to be honest, I'd sooner be in front of my 30 kids in the classroom today because that's where my comfort zone is, but I'll give it a try. As a teacher in social studies, my students and I, we'd look at the word community and see it as a group of people working and playing together. In science, we studied community as a group of plants and animals living together. Now, to me, engagement is seen as an agreement, obligation, action, or commitment. Larry and I plan to point out how community engagement works within our group and beyond. Following my retirement, I soon got involved in the Calumet Synergy Group. Now, the Calumet Synergy Group is basically east of Ponoka and Lacombe, and last year we sort of set grayish boundaries to be from Highway 2 all the way east over to Highway 56, and from Highway 611 north down to the Red Deer River. We are made up of a group of landowners, industry members who work in the area, government regulators, and municipal and or county representatives. When I first heard about Synergy, I soon realized that it was similar to what we used in the education field as conflict resolution, a way to get children to identify the problem and then resolve it. My first thought was that I needed a whole lot more learning about how the oil and gas industry operated in our community. I also had to know and understand more about what was working well and what wasn't. Learning the acronyms or buzzwords used by industry, the regulators, and even landowners was another challenge I had. I soon learned I was not the only one. As stewards of our land, we had negative thoughts about flaring, dust and excessive traffic, big rigs moving up and down our roads, a change in noise. One example of that was back in the 80s. There was a constant roar of flaring near our house that lasted for several days. Needless to say, it was very disturbing, and I was getting very annoyed. On the other hand, I sensed the frustration from industry when dealing with uncooperative landowners. Those wanting excess amounts of money, top-grade roads, being targeted with accusations for disturbing or harming our water wells, etc. Coal bed methane drilling brought a lot of negativity to many communities, just as fracturing is now. However, through education and communication, I feel we are getting better at understanding the pros and cons of each method. In the name of economic progress, I sincerely hope we are all working towards a safe and caring community. Our Synergy group meets the first Thursday of every month from fall to spring. And over the years, we have had a variety of presentations and have discussed many different topics, from water, air and soil pollution, to noise and dust pollution, control of it, from the spread of weeds, such as clubroot, to alternative energy forms, such as wind farms and geothermal energy. The extraction of gravel, reclamation, and abandoned water wells have been more recent topics. What I like about our Synergy group is the respect we show to one another. There is no yelling, screaming, or degrading of individuals or companies, and all members are given the opportunity to express themselves. When we feel we have a need for better understanding of some issue, we arrange for someone with expertise to come and speak to us. Or we arrange for workshops or presentations and invite the public to attend and become informed. Several from our group have attended various presentations outside of our community and then come back to report what they have learned. We very much strive to educate and to communicate. Social licensing is becoming a more frequently used phrase. However, to date, the CSA, which is the Calumet Synergy Association, has not spent any meeting time focusing on what social licensing really means. So when I looked it up, I figured, well, knowing social is being community-based, licensing is the word that means to permit, allow, consent, warrant. I feel we already use and practice this method of business within our group, and we encourage the practice to spread to the landowners within and beyond our Synergy area. The mission for the CSA is to constructively share information and knowledge relating to existing and proposed energy development and commute with area stakeholders in an open, honest, and cooperative manner. Another bouquet and form of community engagement for the CSA is to reach out to the young people, sons or daughters of the landowners in the CSA area, by offering a $500 scholarship each year. The Calumet Synergy Association awards a student beginning post-secondary studies with the CSA Scholarship Excellence Award. Our group is happy to recognize those students and emphasize the importance of supporting their contributions to our area. Very soon, the CSA will be publishing its revised Best Management Practices, which is initially published in 2007. Another worthwhile and beneficial project was to take a surface lease and provide a detailed explanation of each section in layman's terms. It is important for both men and women, whether young or aging, to know and understand the contract they will be signing. I learned this years ago while I was still teaching. I'd get a phone call from Larry saying that some young man from whichever company would be stopping by the school for me to sign some papers. This usually happened at recess or at a time when I didn't take the time to read over the document. Needless to say, I put a lot of trust in Larry and the company rep. The CSA is considering we do the same for a pipeline agreement as well. Best of all, the landowners in the CSA know that a good way to make everyone happy is through their stomach. That is why we encourage all attendees to stay and enjoy the landowners' potluck lunch and fellowship after every meeting. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, folks. I'd like to thank the organizing committee for inviting us here today. Leanne covered some of the stuff, but I'd like to say I was glad to see Judy Winters be the last one to speak in their panel. She being a farmer, and I was a farmer too, that would bring us to the grassroots, where the rubber meets the road. Now, my thoughts on community engagement are, in the rural community, we call it community involvement. People are involved in communities. Leanne and I have been part of a rural community, as well as our parents and grandparents, and in Leanne's case, great-grandparents. Community is about neighbors. We may have disagreements, but I'll tell you, they're always there. Now, when the oil and gas was discovered it was oil first, I should say, was discovered in our area in the 50s, and I do remember that because I'm beyond that yet. There wasn't any communicating between the companies and the landowners. All I ever heard was mom and dad saying, well, I see they got another one of those stinky wells out there. Well, we live in an area of very high concentration of H2S. So the rotten egg smell would come, along with the rusted wire, the plow shares that were rusty, and the tin on the roof that got all rust on it. There was a few people in the community that would get monetary rewards for it, but very few. Now, the 70s, you see there's a little bit of a theme here, folks. The 70s brought a lot of seismic activity to our area, but there also, in that time, the farms had changed to a new generation, myself included. Now, the seismic work, there was no communication or no community involvement with them either. We got money, again, And we also got the pin flags and the open gates and the cut fences too to go along with it. Excuse me here a second. So when the drilling started again in the 80s, we, the landowners, decided that we're going to be ready for this. We're getting a little better educated, TV's there and whatnot. So we decided to form a group. It was called the Nebraska Surface Rights Group. We had about 80 to 100 members. But you know, I think we should have called it, see how much money we can grab from the companies, because that's what it's all about. It was all about money. Nothing else that was associated with the drilling program. Well, the pipelines got put in place and the plants were built, and we continued on. Well, one evening there was a knock on the door, on the front door. Now, if you've lived in the community very long, in a rural community, the neighbors use the back door. The only people that use the front door are usually the church group, a salesman, or a landman. Okay, in this case, there was a guy out there with some papers in his hand, and he said he was from a consulting firm, and he was doing a survey regarding the people that operated the wells and had the plant by the farm. Well, I answered the questions. I don't remember what they were, but I do remember the last question. He said, what can we do to improve relations out here? Well, I thought, and I said, you know, first off, you probably should hire a summer student from the community. It would help. But the last one, I said, do you think it would hurt those guys in those white trucks going down the road to wave once in a while? That's what neighbors do. We wave to each other. So he scribbles this all down and leaves, and I thought, well, that's the end of that. But you know, about a week or two later, I'm in the yard. Guy waves at me. He's using all these fingers too, folks. So we waved back. And also, that summer, I believe it was, they hired our daughter out of university to come and work with them. Now, Darcy down there, he was at the plant. I talked to our daughter the other day, and she said, remind Darcy that all I had to do usually was go home and bake cookies for them. That was her job. Anyway. Okay, I'd like to say that that would be the end of it, and we'd all finish nice and happy with everything, but it's not, folks. In 2000, I happened to see a notice in the paper, and that's where you used to have to list, the drilling companies had to list where they were going to drill, and I happened to notice that some of our land was in there, and we'd been hearing the word coal bed methane. So, neighbor Bill and I came down to the Red Deer College, and I remember Judy was there, and two ladies from the Colorado came to speak about coal bed methane. Now, it was a horror story. Dewatering wells for 6 months, vegetation that was dead. So when I came home and I said to Leanne, I said, if that happens here, we're in trouble. Well, about 2 months later, knock on the front door. This time, it's a landman. He's got a big smile on his face and got some papers in his hand, and he said, just guess how lucky you are, you're going to get a well on your place here in the home quarter just west of your house. Well, I think you can guess what my answer was. No way, Hoss, that's not going to happen. So the fight was on. We objected to everything we possibly could. We also had mineral rights, so we could object a little more to other things. And it just went from bad to worse. There was no communication between us. It was lost. Then one day, Warren Bloomquist phoned, and he said, I guess it was called EUB then. I don't know. I get lose track of you people, what you call them. But anyway, that's what it was. It suggested that we form a synergy group. I said, well, that's probably great, Warren, but I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't even know how to spell it. So he informed me what it was, and I went and looked it up in the dictionary, and it wasn't your name, Judy. It was a Greek word that said united action. So we decided we'd have a meeting, and our first meeting was informal, and it's like Darcy said, that mitten thing there, that was pretty much like our first meeting. And I have to hand it to the energy companies that came. When they came there and came through that door at that curling rink and saw the farmers all perched on their chairs and on the bleachers, we must have looked like a bunch of vultures in there ready to pick their bones clean. I really have to hand it to them. But we prevailed and decided we better better hire a facilitator, so we hired Mr. Rick Anderson over there. Now, if you know Rick, you know he's got a Western flair. So he suited us very well. He'd been on a horse and he chased some cows, so things went okay from there. And Leanne explained exactly what we did there and how we've done it. So I see, I got 1 minute here. Can I go just a little bit longer? No? Oh. Okay. Now, from that time on, our group started to communicate and educate with one another, and it worked. And one day I realized we've got neighbors now. We're neighbors. So I'd like to finish on that, but I'd like to add one thing. And Leanne and I've talked about this, and many landowners will agree. It's not the big things in community engagement, not the big monetary things that get a picture in the paper and the media. It's the little things. It's like the pipe for the railing at the community hall, pipe for the posts at the cemetery, a clipper for the Calumet curling rink, video screens for the community halls, and the guy that comes around and plows the snow for this church when there's this funeral. Those are the little things that count with us. So I'd like to close, and I'd just like to say, maybe it all started back there with that wave. Thank you.